I always appreciate Steve's leading us in songs that are new to us. I think part of worship is variety. If we do the same thing all the time, it gets a little stale, doesn't it? I'm not sure that Waymaker is necessarily new to many of us, but it is new in us singing it here, and that's great. Actually, there's another song coming that is another great one that's wonderful. So looking forward to continuing to worship. And as we mix in hymns sometimes, they are fresh again because we don't happen to do those all the time. So it's a good mix. I like it. All right. I am excited to bring to you today a part 3. Actually, it's the 8th message in Love Does What Is Good, so it's a long series now. But it's part 3 of this thought of renewed thinking. But it is actually the first that is taking this renewed thinking and having it applied. And so we were looking at Romans 12 is where we started with this. Therefore, I urge you, brethren, by the mercy of God, to present your bodies a living holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you will prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect. So we've been talking about this renewed thinking now for 2 weeks, and now we're in our 3rd week. And in talking about that, we were looking at this thinking filter, this renewed thinking filter. And I'm going to move this back just a little bit so I can see it a little better. It's probably going to mess Si up a little bit, but that's all right. So when we were looking at this thinking filter, this is philosophical or attitudinal or something. It's not necessarily practical. It's philosophical. And then we looked at the biblical part of that, what we might focus on in the biblical thinking of relationship, rightness, and reward. And again, that is kind of background as to what we might think about in relation to renewed thinking. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to take our first step into applied renewed thinking. And so what I want to do today is take a particular topic that I believe most of us, although not all of us, would agree on. Although, while not all of us agree on it, not all of us will agree on it to the same extent. But I believe it's a topic that all of us will basically agree on in this room. And I want to walk through it. I want to walk through it in our thinking. And then I believe next week what I'm going to do is look at a more variety of topics. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to look through one topic more thoroughly. And then next week I believe we're going to look at several topics a little more rapid fire. Does that make sense to you? And so each topic, each area that we're faced with needs to have us walk through. I thought I had another. Each area that we are faced with needs to have us think through some of the incomplete areas of thought and get it filtered through reality and through biblical thought to see if it sticks, if it's right. And we need to filter out damaging and wrong thought, right? We need to filter those things out. So every time we're confronted with new information, we must test whether or not it's true and how it might affect our thinking on a topic. Testing our thinking is good. Let me say that again. Testing our thinking is good. Because you've thought some way for decades doesn't mean that it's right. This is right. Because you've thought some way for a long time isn't necessarily right. Okay? So testing our thinking is good. It is strengthened by being tested as long as we stick to the filter, keeping the scriptures as a high value. Does that make sense? So testing our thinking is good. So let me just share a couple scriptures along that idea. So Proverbs has much to say about it. I've just picked out a couple chapters to refer to. Proverbs 14, 15, and 16. The naive believes everything, but the sensible man considers his steps. Now, if you were going to walk through a farm field, that they had just fertilized, would you consider where you took your next step? I sure would. I want to tell you, the information that you are being forcibly fed is a farm field. Yes. Some of it is good dirt, and some of it is other stuff. A wise man is cautious and turns away from evil, but a fool is arrogant and careless. Proverbs 18, 2, 13, and 15. A fool does not delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own mind. Well, is that not Facebook? I mean, is that not exactly what Facebook is? He who gives an answer before he hears, it is folly and shame to him. You know the whole saying, you've been given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason? Right. The mind of the prudent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. So those are a couple Old Testament sayings. Just to look in the New Testament, in addition to the Philippians dwell on these things passage that we looked at last week, Paul also multiple times says, I would not have you to be ignorant. Right? That's a pretty plain statement. We looked at Colossians in our last series, Colossians 3, 1 and 2. Therefore, if you have been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on things that are on earth. And so what we need to do is we need to choose where we focus. And so as we take in information, we need to filter that information and say, well, okay, where am I going to choose to set my attention? Right? And so we want to take in information, but we then need to filter it through what is eternal. And then one of my favorite sections, I just love Acts 17:11 here. The Bereans are given honor here. These were more noble-minded than those in Thessalonica, for they received the word with great eagerness, examining the scriptures daily to see whether these things were so. So they took in teaching, but then they went to the word to see what was right. Oh, it's so good. Take in whatever information you take in, whether it's here or whether it's somewhere out there, but look in the scriptures to see if it's right. Okay, the filter. The filter is what we need to go through. Right? You can take in information from a variety of sources. I am not always right. I might think I'm always right, but I am not always right. And so take in the information, but then search the scriptures to see if it's correct. Filter the information you're taking in. Okay. So today I want to walk through one topic, looking at a process that can be transferred to other topics, which we can look at maybe next week. And so the topic I want to talk about is one that is dear to me and one that is the basis for most of my political thought: abortion. Now, I would think that most of us in this room agree on that, but I don't know that all of us do. And then I would think there are varying levels of agreement on that. But I want to not care at all about whether or not there's agreement on that. I want to say, what does our thinking filter say about it? Right? Because you don't need to agree with me. You don't need to agree with me. We need to agree with what the scriptures say. Right? All of us need to agree with what the Scriptures say. So I would hope that we could find agreement because we agree with the Scriptures. That's what I would hope would be the case. But agreeing with me is not important. Make sense to you? So I want to walk through that. All right. Proverbs. Back in Proverbs. Actually, these verses came up yesterday on the YouVersion verse of the day. I had them as my main verses, and then they came up yesterday. There are 6 things which the Lord hates, yes, 7 which are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. A heart that devises wicked plans, feet that run rapidly to evil, a false witness that utters lies, and one who spreads strife among brothers. Now this section is actually talking about that, a brother who spreads strife. Okay? What it's saying is it's adding that as the 7th to these 6 detestable things. Okay? One of those 6 detestable things is hands that shed innocent blood. I have a hard time imagining any more innocent blood than an aborted baby. Psalm 139, 13 and 14. For you formed my inward parts, you wove me in my mother's womb. You notice I was already me. I was already me in my mother's womb. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. You see, my birthday is June 9th, 1969, but that is not when I started. That's when I was birthed. And none of us desire to go back and figure out the date of our beginning, because that's just a little creepy, right? I get that. I get it. When none of us want to go back to that date, all right, I get it. That doesn't make it not true. Doesn't make it not true. I was alive before June 9th, 1969. And then you have the Luke 1 passage. Now at this time Mary arose and went in a hurry to the hill country, to a city of Judah, and entered the house of Zacharias and greeted Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the baby leaped in her womb. And Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit, and she cried out with a loud voice and said, Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. I have a hard time reading that line without thinking of T-shirts, right? I don't know why. And how has it happened to me that the mother of my Lord would come to me? For behold, when the sound of your greeting reached my ears, the baby leaped in my womb for joy. Now, I want to point out 2 things here. Not only does it refer to the baby in her, right? But it already refers to the mother of my Lord. He was already the Lord in Mary. Already. The Scriptures are clear that it is a baby in the womb. Now, I think there can be some discussion about exactly when that takes place. The easiest thing is conception. I could see somebody saying something about a beating heart, but somewhere early, it's a baby. So, this is what I want to talk about for the biblical filter of this, is that the 10 Commandments say, thou shalt not murder. Proverb tells us that God detests shedding of innocent blood. Psalm 139 says, you knew me before I was seen. And Luke 1 speaks of a baby in the womb, and that Mary was the mother of the Lord before he was born. Okay? So that's the biblical filter that we have to frame the conversation with. And we cannot go outside of that filter. We're not allowed to go outside that filter. That's the structure we have. So whatever other arguments you have, they got to fit within that structure. Or you're outside of biblical reasoning. Okay, so let's talk about reality. Let's talk about reality. Just life reality. Ultrasounds now show that there is no difference between a baby inside the womb and one outside the womb. Have you seen the pictures? It's a baby. There was a recent side-by-side, have you seen that? Of the 3D ultrasound of an inside the womb baby and a baby. Exactly the same. Another reality. A person who kills a pregnant woman is prosecuted for double murder. How can that be true? And yet, the baby's not a baby. How can that be? Another reality. We protect animal eggs. Down in Florida, the beaches, you can't have any lights on the beach because the turtle young ones are confused the entire system down there is upset because you can't have lights certain places. And so the whole human structure has to reevaluate what they're doing because of these turtles that are down there. All right. But we can kill a baby? You know, you can be prosecuted if you kill an eagle egg. But not a baby. We allow minors to have abortions, and an estimated 40% of their parents are unaware. Now, Indiana is a parental consent state, thankfully. But we don't allow certain minors to drive. We don't allow minors to vote. We don't allow minors to drink. We don't allow minors to see movies. We don't allow minors to carry a gun. We don't allow minors to even buy a fishing license. But they can get an abortion without parental consent in many states. Isn't that crazy? Something does not... Reality says something does not go together there. All right. Reality. In week 5 of the pregnancy, week 5, spinal cord, brain, and heart are already being formed. Neural cells begin dividing and differentiating. The heart begins pumping. Week 5. I don't know how early many of you moms knew you were pregnant, but week 5 is not too long after that. Week 6, eyes, nostril, arms begin to develop, heart beating at twice the mother's rate. Week 6. Week 7, movement seen on ultrasound, hands and feet forming, trachea and lungs begin to form. Week 8, fingers and toes and intestinal organs begin to be formed. Week 10, fingerprints and bones. saw a picture yesterday where they were showing all the veins in the leg, and in that picture, the leg was basically translucent, and you could see the bone in the lower leg, and it looked like one of those funny bone candies. You know what I'm saying? It's what it kind of looked like. It was adorable. Week 11, baby can swallow, open and close its mouth, and have breathing movements. Week 12, kidneys, thyroid, and pancreas are operational. Week 13, all major organs are formed. Now that's an important week because that's the end of the first trimester. So abortionists talk about first trimester abortions, right? By the end of the first trimester, all major organs are formed. Let me jump ahead just a bit. By week 23, survival outside the body is 33%. By week 24, survival outside the body is 65%. And by week 25, which is before the end of the second trimester, survival outside the body is 81%. That's reality. It's a baby. Early, it's a baby. Okay. So, biblical and reality, I think, confronts us. And yet, there are excuses. There are excuses that are given that I want to walk through. One of the main excuses that is first given: what about rape, incest, and health of the mother? Right? Isn't that one of the first things said? How dare you not care about those who are raped, who have incest committed, or who might be at risk? Okay? There is no way you're going to be able to see this chart. I know it. But let me read it to you, okay? I'm going to come around. I have to stay at the pulpit. I'm going to tilt this a bit, because I can't read that one. The state of Florida records a reason for every abortion that occurs within its borders each year. In 2018, there were 70,083 abortions in Florida. This table lists each reason and the percentage of abortions that occurred because of it. So these percentages are from 70,000 abortions. So it's not a small sample, okay? Not a small sample. I'm going to start at the bottom. 75% gave no reason or were elective. Another 20%, the woman aborted for social or economic reasons. So we're already at 95%. Another 1.67%, the woman's psychological health was threatened by the pregnancy. Now, that's at 97+% already. Above that, we have less than 1.5%, the woman's physical health was threatened. 1%, there was a serious fetal abnormality. 0.27%, the woman's life was endangered by the pregnancy. So, the 1.45 was the woman's physical health was threatened. 0.27, the woman's life was endangered. So there's some difference between the woman's life was endangered and the woman's physical health was threatened. I don't know what that difference is. But somehow, this woman's life wasn't endangered. 0.14%, the woman was raped. And 0.01%, the pregnancy resulted from an incestuous relationship. So first of all, when that excuse is given, in this case of over 70,000 abortions, over 97% had nothing to do with that at all. And probably more like over 98 or some percent of that, maybe over 99% of it didn't have anything to do with that. But safely over 97% had nothing to do with that. Even in the increasingly rare instances where the health of the mother is at risk, I don't know why we would need to abort the baby. Why not remove the baby and fight for it to live? And if it doesn't live, okay. But willfully killing the baby is a whole nother thing. I get it, if the mother's life is endangered, you need to remove the baby. I get that. Right? I agree with that. If the mother's life is endangered, truly endangered, remove the baby. But fight for it to live. The psychological health of the mother. There was a study in this that showed that 81% of those who claimed the psychological claim actually showed a worsening after the abortion. And really, the whole political side of that psychological concern is an excuse. Because then you can claim that anything is a reason. Because then if you actually outlaw abortion, except for the health of the mom, including psychological, well then you can say, oh, I have a headache. You know? It makes me feel bad. Are there psychological issues? Yes. Yes, there are. Can being pregnant cause psychological issues? Yes. Is aborting the baby the solution? It can't be. It can't be. Let me put it this way. If Yvonne caused me great angst, which you know she does. I mean, you know her, right? It's hard living with her, right? Could we just bump her off? And that just doesn't make any sense, right? Even in a serious situation, if there was somebody who was causing psychological issues for somebody else, you don't get to bump them off. You don't get to kill them. That's not how that goes. It's not how that goes. So, rape, incest, health of mother. That's always what's brought up. And it's an insignificantly small amount of abortions. And I would believe that biblically, you still can't kill the baby. Now, I could see where there could be disagreement on that. I could understand where there could be disagreement on that. But it's a small number. And it does not give grounds to approve of abortion. Of over 600,000 abortions every year in our country. Okay. The next framework of excuse is quality of life. Quality of life. Now, the first of those is quality of life for the mom. Quality of life for the mom, to which I say, what? What are you talking about? That's despicable. I would not have been able to become the successful professional I am today had I not had that abortion. That is despicable. Adoption is a great answer. Have an adoption, have the baby, have it adopted, and move on. Abortion is despicable, and to try to frame it in a positive way is so low. It would not have worked out nearly as well for me if I would not have been able to completely avoid any responsibility for the baby I had growing within me, is really what they're saying. For our culture, for our nation, for our society to accept that line shows a degradation that is unacceptable. That we would accept killing a human so that another could have a better professional life. No way. Quality of life for the mom. No way. Quality of life for the child. Some actually make this argument. Quality of life for the child. As though you're doing the child a favor. Because the child might not have everything set up for the privileged life, we should end their life. What kind of mixed up thinking is that? First of all, any child born in America is privileged compared to being born anywhere else in the world, basically. Are there struggles? Are there hardships? Yes. But the answer is to end their life? I did not ask him, but I'm just going to say this. Steve Hoy was adopted, right? And he's our worship leader. And he's a great man of God that is living a great life. He's been a dad to 2 wonderful kids. And Bonnie even claims him as a good husband. Right? I remember in his concert when he was here for the first time that he shared that he was thankful that his mom gave him up for adoption. Yes! Yes! If a mom feels like she cannot do it, okay. Okay. Have the baby and give them up for adoption. There are a lot of families. There are a lot of families that would love to have that baby. Oh, some use this area to demean those who oppose abortion with something like this. You pro-lifers care about that baby being born, but not about helping them once they're born. Really? As far as I've seen, Christians and conservatives are the most giving people with their time and their resources. Is it perfect? No. Could we give more? Yes. Could we help more? Yes. But even if this were true, even if it were true that we are not helping them enough, it still isn't right to kill the baby. That still isn't the answer. If there were so many babies being born and there were not enough families to adopt them, could you not see a groundswell? Could you not imagine a groundswell of churches saying, oh, we've got to get involved here? Could you not imagine that? I could. If all of a sudden we had half of the abortions being born, and we had 300,000 babies that were born instead of aborted, and the adoption agency said, you know what, we've got 300,000 newborns that need to be adopted. Do you not think that churches across America wouldn't say, oh, okay? But even if they didn't, even if we failed in that, it's still despicable. And if we didn't, I would call it despicable. I would call it despicable that we wouldn't step up to it. Okay. Next excuse. There are single stories of hardship. I'm sure you have read these or seen these. Single stories of hardship. I saw one again just yesterday. Some of these are terribly heartbreaking. In fact, basically all of them are terribly heartbreaking. I saw one yesterday of a mother who knew that her child would probably not make it to term, which is incredibly hard. Right? How do you not feel for that mom? But I don't understand how abortion being legal and accepted makes that situation not desperately hard. I don't understand what abortion has to do with the heartache of that situation. Because she could decide that she could end it at this stage instead of going on another 3 months or whatever, saved her 3 months carrying the baby, it did not save any time of heartache. Right? I'm not trying to be cold because I understand that there is incredible hurt there. But the hurt is still there. But where does that end? Because some of that percentage was desperate illness in the baby. Okay, Vaughn and I were offered a test to see if our baby had Down syndrome. Because if it did, the thought was we might want to abort. So what desperate illness are you talking about that you might abort the baby? What fetal syndrome are you talking about that might be suitable for abortion? Oh, they didn't get the blonde hair and blue eyes that I wanted. Done. Right? What's the line? Well, there is no line, actually. It's purely an emotional draw that doesn't really fit the model for why we would have abortion or not have abortion. All it is, it's meant to make you feel bad. For why you would be cold and heartless and against this mom who's hurting. When you're not cold and heartless and against this mom who's hurting. Last one. Last excuse. Women's rights, women's empowerment. It's all a big old lie. Amen. I would venture to say that nothing has allowed men to act without any thought for responsibility like abortion rights have. A free sex culture does not empower women. How does that empower women? Who is it? Who is it that wants free sex more, men or women? Not only do women bear the burden of carrying the baby, but now carry the burden of ending the baby's life. It is not good for women. It's not greater rights. It's not empowerment. It's not good. It's not good for women. Men can be even greater cavemen and have no responsibility at all. If they can come up with the $500 to pay for it, they're out. And even some of them don't even do that. They say you should come up with the $500 to pay for it. It's not good for women. It's not progressive for women. It's not powerful for women. What is good for women is the biblical model of men marrying a woman and having a family. That's what's powerful for women. Do you know who wants to do the greatest thing in the world for Yvonne? I do. Do you know who she has the most control over in the entire world? It may be me or it may be her children, but it's a close race. If she wants something in our home, I want to accomplish that. That's power. That's fulfillment because of the relationship that we have together. The empty free sex culture is harmful to women. And then, what about all those female babies being aborted? What about those women's rights? They're not being empowered for sure. Okay. I wanted to walk through this topic more thoroughly. Now let me walk through the filter, recapping and adding a little bit. Silly. It is silly to think that there is such a thing as free sex. That's just silly. The people who talk about it like that, they're just completely immature. They just don't get life. It's silly. The people you know that talk about sex like it's free sex, just get all you want and whoever you want with and all that, they're completely immature, silly people. Aren't they? Short term. A girl or a woman finds herself pregnant and makes a short-term decision with at least dual lifelong consequences. At least dual. If the dad's involved, triple. If that baby was going to have a family and a family and a family and a family, it could be multiplied by hundreds of lives-long consequences because she or others pressuring her in the short term got caught up. escape. Not only is the short term an escape for that person, but people avoid the topic because it's touchy. Right? Escape. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it because it's a hot button. Right? But we are killing over 600,000 babies every year. It's despicable. Self. Just blaringly. The woman or the man pressuring the woman or the parents pressuring the woman or anybody thinking that it is good to think we would be better off in the future if you just got rid of this baby. That is selfish on a level that rare other things are. Like if I decided that having 3 kids, you know what? It just ends up that having 3 kids is too many. Maybe we should just get rid of Drew. You know? Right? I mean, it's crazy in the level of selfishness that it is. And yet our culture wants to act like, oh yeah, that's a good decision. That's a fitting decision. No, it's not. Society wants to act like this is all a good subject because it's women empowerment, women's rights. It's all, are you for the women? Yes, I am. I am for the women. And abortion is awful for them. Awful. Society wants to say that it's all a good thing. Reality is it's harmful for all involved and encourages sinful sex. It legalizes murder. The long-term emotional and mental effects are there. The spiritual consequences personally, societally, nationally. Reality shows that it's terrible. And biblically, God hates hands that shed innocent blood. You see, we just can't get away from that. Whatever rationale somebody wants to put in your face, whatever emotional story somebody wants to put in front of you, whatever reasoning somebody wants to say, whatever empowerment somebody wants to talk about, Proverbs 6:16 to 19 talks about God hating hands that shed innocent blood. That's what the scriptures say. That's not what some curmudgeon says. That's not what some old fuddy-duddy says. Although probably a curmudgeon and an old fuddy-duddy do say that. It doesn't matter that they say it. It matters that the Lord of the universe declares it not good. Not good. And so as you think about topics, as you think about areas of information and areas of contention, put them through the filter. Right? See where there's misguided information and stick to what the scriptures say. Stick to it. Let's pray. Father, we come before you. Lord, I pray you'd give us wisdom in understanding your word so that we can be settled in what's true. But also, Lord, I pray you'd give us wisdom so that we might have a better understanding of how to operate within our society in a way that is right before you. Lord, that we would stand up for truth, and at the same time that we would share of your goodness. That we would be ones that are so convinced of your great grace being dumped in our lives that we would then beg others to come to you. That we would see your instructions as good. Lord, help us to have wisdom to see not just this particular topic, but that we would also see how your word shines light on many. Thank you for your truth. May you be honored as we respond to it in Christ's name. Amen.